Hey guys, it's Tino here, and I'm doing a little fooling around on the old barbarian here. I have a couple of different characters. I have a barbarian, a witch doctor, and a wizard. No, not a wizard. Well, I do have a wizard, but he's like level 17. The demon hunter is actually my main. So basically, I took a long break from Diablo, and part of the reason was because I was getting frustrated by lack of item drops and quality of the stuff that I was getting, and lots of the complaints that everybody else has. Anyway, I stopped playing for a while. I did a whole bunch of different Steam games. I'm still playing those too. But a couple of my friends have picked up with the Diablo 3 once again. This actually sounds a little loud, so let me just turn this down a wee bit. So I decided to go ahead and give Diablo a shot once again. So I'm going to be doing a couple of MP0 runs. Hopefully I can get in at least, sort of like one per day, ideally multiples. But I have a fairly aggressive work schedule, and, I don't have a lot of time. Anyway, the runs that I do are essentially focused on the monster density, or however you want to phrase it. So I basically do the core of Ariat. Then I do the Ariat Crater level 2. I don't bother with level 1 just because it's spaced out a little bit more, and there aren't as many packs of the scorpions and blah 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 blah. And then I'll do the Keep Depths level 2. This is actually a run that I adopted from someone that I play with very frequently, and he just has a method to his madness. So I, for whatever reason, have adopted the same run. So it seems to work pretty well. I seem to get a decent amount of loot, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's the most fun I've had in Diablo, but I do thoroughly enjoy destroying giant packs of mobs. So the build that I use is pretty straightforward. I like the Maximus plus fire damage build. I have a Mage Fist that gives me a fairly significant portion of extra fire damage. And part of the reason I like it so much is, as you just saw, that Elite Pack pretty much got mulched instantly. It's extremely good for a brief chunk of high burst DPS. I've noticed that it's not really too survivable of a build in general. That being said, if you have enough life leech and you maintain your self buffs and, etc., etc. Oh, I'm going to be so fast now. Haha, yes. But as long as you stay on top of that stuff, usually it works pretty well. And at low MPs, I've noticed that this build is absolutely fantastic. I can literally just fly through pretty much anything. I don't really have to do too much dancing around. Not too many enemy types are a worry. The only thing that is a little bit of a pain is Arcane. For whatever reason, I don't have a lot of elemental resist or arcane elemental resist. I have a decent chunk of resist all, but nothing to write home about. So yeah, Tyrael's Might, Andariel's Visage, got the Mage Fist, decent set of shoulders, decent amulet. This thing could use work. It doesn't have any strength on it. My bracers are meh, not awful. Very, very terrible Hellfire Ring, but honestly, I just have mediocre luck with rolling Hellfire Rings, so I don't know. This is a pretty solid ring. Could use attack speed, but as you can see, I'm on a budget here, and anything that's trifecta or quadfecta, as it's been coined recently, it's just totally out of reach. It's completely impractical to even think that I'm going to get some of that kind of quality gear. So let's see here. Terrible Daibo. This is a Quandao, so that's going to be atrocious also. I have noticed that in the economy recently, it seems like the essences and stuff like that are selling for quite a bit more than they used to, and gems and stuff like that are exorbitantly expensive. Holy smokes, especially emeralds. Woo! Man, you get a couple of emeralds and you are going to make bank. I sold one of the next tier up from the star. I think it's the, let's see, I think it goes Flawless Perfect Radiant, right? Or something like that. Anyway, so I had a it might have even been a perfect, but either way, I had a decent emerald, and just selling that one garnered almost 3 million gold. So one of the things that, while I'm doing this little run, one of the things I wanted to mention is for players who don't have that much time to invest into this game, Diablo is unfortunately a very frustrating event. And the reason I say that is not because the gameplay is difficult, or, you know, it's not that you can't make a build that'll work, and, you know, there's no issues with that stuff. It's just, if you're running off of your own steam, and, you know, you're not multi-boxing, or, you know, duping items, or something like that, the current economy does not really afford you a lot of opportunity to make gold. And a lot of the items that are extremely good, like the stuff that's really good for DPS and, you know, best in slot items and stuff like that, they're all so expensive right now that there's like a disconnect. It seems like the economy is run sort of by these hardcore players, and or, you know, people who have lots of time to invest. And unfortunately for the rest of us, and I can't say that I understand the demographics or exactly what, you know, group of people gets the most time to invest in, yada yada yada. But lots of people who play this game have lots of time to play it. That's fair. You know, they can reap the benefit of having this huge chunk of time to invest. But for a lot of us who, you know, can only really maybe sneak in an hour or two every day, sometimes not even every day, sometimes it's every other. A lot of times I just don't want to deal with the baloney that is Diablo, so I won't even play it for like a couple of days. The people like me who, you know, thoroughly enjoy Diablo and really care about their character and want to progress further and, you know, be able to farm higher level monster powers in order to constantly increase my gear level, it's sort of a pipe dream. I can't really realize that kind of a thing because I only can invest, like I said, maybe an hour or two every day. And let me go ahead and just open my achievements real quick, because this is nope, excuse me. Let me open my character pane. No. I totally forgot how to. Probably because I had a brain fart. Hang on. Let me fight these mobs. Let me just go ahead and kill them real quick. Yeah! God, I love this build. It's so much fun. You drop an Earthquake, you go Wrath of the Berserker with the Insanity Rune, and everything explodes. I mean, granted, I'm playing on Monster Power 0, but it's pretty solid. So let's see. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to point out, if I can remember how to access it from, let's see, not achievements. You know, maybe I actually have to back out of the game. I thought you could inspect yourself, but apparently you have to not be in-game, which is fascinating. I wonder if can I view my played time in here via the game menus? I'm a noob, but I have invested a lot of time into Diablo. I have not achieved 1,000 hours yet, but I'm certainly past 500 between all of my characters. So I have not invested a small amount of time, but I haven't, you know, I'm not playing as much as like Athene Wins or apparently he doesn't play anymore, or Kriparian or any of them. I just don't, you know, I can't invest the time that I want to. So let me just stop getting off topic here and focus a little bit for just one second, because the point I'm trying to make is that I have a quote-unquote limited opportunity to get gear drops, and the other factor is that the itemization and the way that items roll and stuff, it's very difficult to get something that will sell for anything comparable to drop. It's because it's so hard to get that to happen that coupled with the fact that I only have, you know, maybe an hour or two every day, so that's like, you know, if I'm doing really fast, I can do maybe one of these 3-tier runs in maybe 10 minutes, you know, maybe 15 or something like that. And that means that in this hour or two period, you know, I'm only getting, I don't know, however many elite packs. Let's say I get about 10 per run. Alright, so let's say that maybe I did 4 runs in an hour. So I killed about 40 elite packs. Unfortunately, that small of an investment, that small of a let's say a chunk of farming, it's almost impossible to get a decent item to drop. And because I only play a little bit, you know, there's no real chance for me to increase that. And the stuff on the auction house is exorbitantly expensive. So I'm essentially at a complete standstill in terms of gearing up. Now that being said, the Blizzard has sort of taken this into account. We'll see how it actually goes when they put it into practice, but when the PvP does eventually drop, it will take into account your gear level, your gear point. But one of the issues is that you know, you'll get stuck in a specific bracket of you know, based on gear level. And this isn't a good or a bad thing, but I've noticed that it's frustrating to not be able to keep up with, like, for example, your close friends. I have a couple of friends who can invest. Well, one of my friends is essentially unemployed, so he's able to play a lot when he decides to. One of my other friends is just outrageously lucky. So whenever I'm playing with these two guys, both of them have, you know, on their mains, they have essentially like double the DPS of my main character. Just because the gear that they've found is so, you know, phenomenal. And I seem to just have poor luck, you know? So oh, God, it can be just a bit of a pain in the ass. It can be frustrating for me to try and get something. That's actually a shockingly high DPS roll, but still bad. There's no crit, there's no socket, there's no nothing. Bad. And bad. Was on the right track, though. Terrible. And, oh, God. If that was, like, intelligence and resist all, that might have actually been worthy, but I don't know. I've read so many different forum posts from so many different people about different perspectives on why Diablo 3 frustrates them, and from what I've noticed, I mean, there's obviously the most complaints about the itemization, and the reason that is because I feel like, and I could be totally wrong, and I could just be talking out my butt, so take this with a grain of salt, but I feel like there's a large chunk of the Diablo 3 crowd that plays, you know, actively, you know, every other day, every day, whatever, that don't have enough time to make up for bad luck. And I think that's the point that I'm trying to get across. Sure, the Hellfire Rings are a good way to, you know, focus yourself when you're trying to fill a specific item slot. But I don't necessarily think that this is enough to, let's see, to sort of aid, you know, the people who don't get enough time to really play. I'm not in any way trying to say that because I play less, I should just be entitled to the same gear point as the people who play a lot more than me. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that I need to know that when I play, I'm going to get rewarded. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to justify investing, you know, 500 or more hours into something without any reward. Unfortunately, the most I have ever made on a single item, and I actually consider myself kind of lucky because I've heard horror stories, I've read forum posts that just make me want to cry. The most I've ever made on an item was back in patch like 103 or something like that. I got a Natalia's Mark. I got the Natalia set ring. And back then it was a rare drop, so it sold for about 20 million gold. So on my main character, my Demon Hunter, I was able to gear him up by that 20 million gold factor way back in the early days. That same 20 million gold factor is now almost insignificant. I mean, the stuff that I was wearing that I spent a lot of money on just because of the duration that the game has been played, and you know how many rolls that people get, and the quantity of items being dropped, and it all factors into the way that the economy is now. And it seems like especially from this perspective of being a player, an active player, but not necessarily hardcore or professional in any sense of the term. So anyway, what I'm trying to get across here is coupled with bad luck and blah blah blah, I could whine about this endlessly, but I'm not. I made a big chunk of money early in the days, and I had a solidly equipped character for that period of time. The problem is that, actually, that mob just feared me right out of my death there. That was very nice of him. Anyway, the issue for me is that 20 million worth of gold or whatever, which even back then, compared to the people who play a lot of time, that was like nothing. I mean, people were making several hundred million with that lucky drop. Never got a lucky drop. I never got something that garnered me that much money. So now my 20 million gold worth equipped Demon Hunter has like one of the lowest gear points, considering the amount of time that I've played. And it's really frustrating to know that just because of a random chance and that kind of a thing, that all this time I've invested hasn't really rewarded me in the way that many other players have been, have found that. They found that one item that sold for a ridiculous amount and were able to really gear up a character. Or, some people just find decent things very regularly, and that can make up for never finding like one huge item. But I think there's a lot of us who are frustrated by how few and far between the good item drops are, and lots of us who have invested a big chunk of time, which is honestly the most precious resource, really. I mean, you don't want to waste your time. If you want to play a game and try and get something out of it, you want the time that you've invested to be fun, definitely, but ideally you want it to be lucrative. You want to be making some kind of progress. And that's what's really frustrating, when you slam your head against the wall. And I don't necessarily mean try to do MP10 in an underpowered character. I mean, you could do 100 MP0 runs, and after you do enough of them, it still feels as grueling as trying to do like one underpowered or undergeared pull against any elite pack in MP10. It just feels like an uphill battle. You know what I mean? It feels like I can't get any ground, any headway into breaking into like a higher bracket of gear, higher bracket of DPS. And this being said, I'm not complaining, because my Demon Hunter, even though he was at his highest gear point 5 or 6 months ago, he still has decent gear. I've been able to, swap in some new stuff. The economy has affected things in a very interesting way. So some good items are now totally ubiquitous, and you can find them for dirt cheap, like Andy's Visage. Oh my god, you can find Andy's on the auction house with just about every stat variety, any kind of stat combination, for almost dirt cheap. They only start to get expensive when you try to add like Vitality or, something like that. So almost all of my characters have very nice Andy's Visage. My Witch Doctor does not yet, just because he's less DPS dependent than most of the other classes. Like my Demon Hunter, if he didn't do a lot of DPS, he would just get schooled left and right. My Barbarian, if he didn't do a lot of DPS, he'd never be able to heal himself, stay alive, because I do have a lot of lifesteal. I got about 10.7 lifesteal. That's unfortunately I'm using the passive to buff it up a little bit more, but once you hit 100,000 DPS or so, you can drop down a little bit to like 7%, and you'll still stay alive. So I'm using builds that don't necessarily require a high gear point, so they're still pretty fun, and I can enjoy myself to a certain extent. But there's a strange dichotomy that I've noticed between approaches to finding the good gear. which is another thing that might be fantastic information for someone in my situation. I can't necessarily farm the higher monster powers by myself. My Demon Hunter in its normal gear can certainly do MP4, MP5, but as soon as you switch to your MF, assuming that you even still bother to do that, you suddenly drop, 60 to 70% of your DPS, and for the sake of what? One of the big things that I've noticed in my playtime is that I cannot accurately tell if MF has helped or hindered me in any way. Sometimes, if I'm not wearing MF, I will get tons of rare drops over and over. Every elite pack will, drop 3 rares or something like that. I don't seem to get very many legendaries with or without the MF. I seem to just have like a bit of bad luck when it comes to that. But that being said, I also don't really know. See, I just got 3 rares from that pack with 5 stacks, and I'm not switching to my MF at all. So I don't seem to see a significant effect, especially not in the quality of the items. I'm fairly certain that it does not affect the quality at all. It just gives you more opportunities to potentially get an item. And yeah, I don't know. It's never seemed to accurately reflect in either the quality of the loot, the quantity of the loot at all. So I honestly am very neutral on switching back and forth to MF. On my Demon Hunter, I sometimes will do entire runs in my MF, and I'll just mooch off of my friends who also play. Just because I want to see, will this actually affect? I got another 3 rares off of that with no MF, so it's like, do you really need to waste the space in your inventory for MF gear if it's not really going to affect you in any way, shape, or form? I don't know. Sometimes it's confusing, to say the least. And the frustration for me, I think the most of my Diablo frustration stems out of a lack of reward. I just never seem to get anything that's particularly awesome. Very rarely do I get things that are, even worth putting on the auction house, which is so frustrating because, let's face it, just picking up everything and vendoring it is not a fast way to make money. So that's kind of my situation at the moment. Just trying to find, I'm trying to find that that reward per playtime ratio. And so far, honestly, I'm struggling. I can't seem to get anything decent to drop when I do solo speedruns at low MF, or at low monster power. I don't seem to get anything better when I do normal speedruns at, higher MF, or excuse me, I don't know why I keep saying that, and higher monster powers, even if I switch to my MF. I want to know, if you guys watch this video and you've made it all the way through here, give me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you experience the same kind of a thing? Do you think I've just been unlucky in, like a 9-month dry spell? Is it... Hey, that's not too shabby. Maybe I can get a little bit for that. I wish it was more than 1050 DPS, but you never know. So that's an example of one of the best items that I think I've gotten in weeks. And, it doesn't have vitality instead of one of those main stats to focus it a little bit. It doesn't have a socket, so you can't add any more stuff to it. So honestly, there's a very little chance that I'll even be able to sell this at all. Like, it looks deceptively good, but it's, worthless, really. That's terrible, too. So, as you can see in this MP0 run, I've been talking a lot, so I wasn't really going as quick as I could, just because I wanted to verbalize all this stuff. But, I think I got maybe 15 rares, maybe more than that. Maybe I got 2 full rows. So, give me the benefit of the doubt here. Let's say that I got 20 rares. One of them might sell for a tiny bit of gold on the auction house. And, you know, I just spent 15 minutes of my life for basically no reward at all. Short of the gratification that you get from slaying a giant herd of enemies, which is not to be underestimated. I look absolutely ridiculous, and that's totally okay with me because this character's really fun. But I just am, overall, just a little frustrated with the itemization. The randomness just seems to put you at a disadvantage. And most of the good gear I got was before the patches where they doubled the legendary drop rates, and then once again doubled the drop rates for rares, and doubled the drop rates for 63s, and so on and so forth. So I wouldn't say that I'm getting tired of it. I would say that I'm a little bit frustrated by the inconsistency. But I'm looking forward to PvP when it finally drops. Can't wait to try the dueling when that comes out in 107. And yeah, so basically my subsequent Diablo videos will not be as intense, like Mike has to tell you all this baloney about, you know, the pain and agony of Diablo 3 first world problems. But I will be a little more lighthearted, but I think that it was good to get some of my Diablo 3 angst out of the way. So that way when, you know, I'm playing with, you know, some friends and making another video or whatever, you guys at least have a little bit of perspective of my approach to this game. I honestly really only play it because it's great multiplayer with my friends. I really don't get too much out of it. I don't seem to gear up very quickly, and, you know, I'm a bit of a standstill. But like I said, it's really just one of the best multiplayer games available, so I kind of stick with it. Anyway, this is your old pal Tino, aka Funk Police, playing on the Barbarian here, doing a speed run, and I will do more videos. Hopefully, you guys will be there with me when I find that one item that'll sell for like 100 million gold and get some good stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully, in the next videos, I will be less of a frowny whiner pants and more of a laughy McAwesome guy. So thanks again, guys. I will catch you in the next episode.